Hi guys, I am ready for lesson 3 of module 18. So as you know, this module is all about data and statistics and representing data on different kinds of graphs. So lesson 1 and 2 were all about picture graphs. Now we're using bar graphs. So the I can statement, I'm on page 465. The I can statement says, I can use data in a scaled bar graph to solve how many more and how many less problems. So again, we're just comparing numbers, comparing data on a graph. The Spark Your Learning says, Mr. Mason's students are showing data that they collected. On what topic might the students have collected information? So if we look at the graph, the start of the graph, the title says, which is your favorite blank? So it could be anything. What could it be? We could be, what is your favorite color? What is a third grader going to ask or do a survey on? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite sport? Your favorite subject? Your favorite food? Lots of different options. So I'm gonna do, what is your favorite food? Because I love food. And so I'll say on the lines right here, you could come up, brainstorm with a bunch of different ideas, and then write down the one that you want to do a survey on. So, which is your favorite food? So, use your idea to complete the graph. So now we have all the data is filled out for us already. All we have to do is do the title of the graph and all the different options. So now this is how a bar graph is structured, a little bit different than a picture graph. A picture graph, you have the title, so those are the same, but then on the side, you have the categories or the topics, and then right next to those is like a symbol that represents a number of votes, and then the bottom has the key. So we're familiar with picture graphs. So with the bar graph, we have the numbers going up the side. We'll talk about different types of bar graphs too that don't have the numbers up the side. But typically the numbers are going up the side, and then the bottom, you have your different topics. So if the title is which is your favorite food, then each of these bars is going to represent votes for a different topic of food. So you have to label your graph. It's super important you label your graph. So on the side, it is number of votes. So you could say number of students, number of votes, whatever you're surveying or however you're counting. So then the bottom would be the food choices. Or, yeah, food choices, favorite dinner, different, like where do you go to get your food, things like that. So the first one, let's see, the bar graph goes up to the number 5. So that tells us that there are 5 votes for this food, and we're gonna make up our own. If you did not do food, that's fine, do something else. So my first food choice is going to be, rice. I love fried rice, like veggie fried rice. So that's gonna be my first choice, fried rice. Okay, the next one, let's see, this one has 4 votes. Maybe this one is something like a salmon dinner. I don't like salmon. I don't like fish. But this one has less votes. Then the most popular, you can tell because it's the highest, this one has 9 votes. I bet this one is pizza. Pizza. And the last one is, I don't know, you can make up literally anything you wanted. We have fried rice, salmon, pizza, and this is a really hilarious variety. Pizza, and how about some nuggets? There are 6 votes for nuggets. So that is our bar graph. Pretty simple, so different than a picture graph, but similar with the title, and we have the different topics. They're just written out in a different way. So that's that. Okay, then the next page, it says, we have a couple different vocabulary words, new vocabulary words. So let's read that part first. It says, you previously learned to show data using picture graphs. So we already talked about that. A bar graph uses bars to show data, so it shows the amount. A scale of equally spaced numbers helps to label a graph. So this is a really important part. So a scale is just like a key, right, for picture graphs. So for the picture graphs, we would say, okay, one smiley face represents 4 votes, or one square represents 5 students. So it just represents something. So same with the scale. A scale is how you count up the side of a bar graph. So this one, the one that we did on the Spark Your Learning, the scale was just 1. We just counted by ones. This one, though, starts at 0. Bar graphs always start at 0. And then it goes to 2, 4, 6, 8. So this scale is counting by 2s. And so we use scales to help shrink our graph, because remember, the purpose of graph is to represent data in like a quick little tidbit. Like, here is just a little mini version of this information that I gathered, and it's just right here for you to see very easily. So that's the purpose of graphs. And so if you have something where it's like, oh, we had 20 graphs, you don't, or not 20 graphs, but 20 votes, you don't want your graph to go all the way up to the number 20, and so you shrink it and you count by 2s, and it only goes up to 10. And so this is why it's really important that we know our math facts, our multiplication facts, we know how numbers are related to each other, so we know how to write our own graphs and do our different scales. So let's get started with this question because we've read our vocabulary, so that's perfect. We got it. So scale, same thing as a key. It's just counting differently. Okay, number 1, Vin asks students which kind of weather is their favorite and makes a bar graph. How do you know the scale of the bar graph? Explain. Well, we go to 0 and the next number is 2. So we're looking for the difference between those little marks. The difference between 0 and 2 is 2. The difference between 2 and 4 is 2. The difference between 4 and 6 is 2. So we're counting by 2s. That's how we know. So we're looking for the in-between. So that's what you'll write here. Explain that. And then part B says, how are the bars for stormy and sunny weather different than the other bars? So if we look over here, stormy and sunny, so how are they different? So the bars, you'll notice, these 2 bars are different from the other ones because they do not end up on a line. See that? They're in between the 2 lines. So because we know our scale, we know where they are at, because if they're in between 2 even numbers, it's going to be the odd number that's in between them. So you're going to write out that they do not go up to a line. They go in between a line. So it's the same thing as like for lesson 1, where we had the tree represents 2 trees, and then there was a picture of half a tree, and that half tree represented 1 tree, because the scale was a full tree represents 2 trees. So just the same exact thing. If we have the 2 lines representing 2 and 4 votes, in between 2 and 4 is the number 3. So that's 3 votes. So what is half of the scale of 2? That would just be 1, right? In between 2 and 4 is 3. The difference between 2 and 3 is 1. How can you find the number of votes for stormy weather? Well, we could count by 2s, go up to 8, and determine the difference between 8 and 10 is 2, and half of 2 is 1. So 8 plus 1 is 9. That's kind of a complicated way to describe it, but it's pretty straightforward. If this is 8, this is 10, that's 9. because 9 is in between 8 and 10. So yeah, 9 votes. Okay, because it's halfway between it. All right, the step it out. Oh, we missed a vocabulary box. So this says a vertical bar graph. So a vertical bar graph uses bars that go in the direction from bottom to top. So we know the difference between vertical and horizontal lines. Same goes for a bar graph. So a vertical bar graph, I think, is the most common, where you have the topics on the bottom and then the number on the side, and then the bars go, they start at the bottom. That's important. They always start at the bottom and they go up to the top. But you'll see on the next page, on the Step It Out, we are introduced to a new bar graph with horizontal lines. So they're going from side to side. And the numbers are on the bottom, so it's a little bit different. But the same idea, where each line represents a number, and if the bar goes to that line, then that's the number of votes or students or whatever it is you're measuring. And then if you're in between two lines, then you are just half of the scale. So if the scale is 4, halfway is 2, so then that would just be 2 more than the last line. That was a lot, so we'll just go through the problems and it'll make more sense. Number 2, Kel surveys students about which kind of movie is their favorite and makes a bar graph. Part A, what do you notice about the scale? So looking at the numbers, remember the numbers tells us the scale. We start at 0, then we go to 4, then we go to 8, then we go to 12, 16, 20, 24. So those are all multiples of 4. So we're counting by 4. So that's what we'll write here, counting by 4. And then part B says, write an equation to find the number of students who choose family movies. So we could do this. If we don't just look at the numbers here, another strategy we could do is counting the lines. And so we have 1 line, 2 lines, almost like it was a number line. 3, 4, and 5. So there are 5 jumps, and each of those jumps are worth 4 votes. So that's a multiplication equation. 5 times 4 equals 20. So 20 students chose family movies. So we would know that by either looking at the line that it lands on, or by counting, say these numbers were not there, we would just count the lines and know that each line is worth 4 votes. So similar to the picture graph where each symbol represented 4 votes, and we did 4 times 5 or 5 times 4 to get the number of votes, the total. Okay, so part C says, if each space stands for 4 students, what does halfway between the space stand for in the graph? Explain. So here to here is 4 votes. In between would be a 2, right? Because that's halfway, and half of 4 is 2. So you'll just write 2 votes and then explain that halfway between 4 votes is 2, because half of 4 is 2. Part D, write equations to find the number of students who choose comedy movies. So we have comedy over here, 1 jump, 2 jump, 3 jump, and a half. So we would do 3 times 4 equals 12 plus 2, because half of 4 is 2, equals 14 movies. And then part E says, how can you find how many fewer students choose comedy movies than family movies? So if we do family versus comedy, we would just subtract those totals. So it'd be 20 minus 14, and 20 minus 14 is 6. So there are 6 fewer comedy movies. Pretty cool. Okay, so now let's do the check understanding. It says to use the graph above. How many more students choose comedy than hero movies? Okay, so again, we're comparing, and so we're going to subtract. So we know how many comedy movies there are. There are 14 comedies minus the hero movies. So we'll count the hero. We have one group of 4, 2 groups of 4. So 2 times 8. I'm going to do that on the side. 2 times 4. I gave away the answer. 2 times 4 equals 8. And then we have a half jump. Half of 4 is 2. And 8 plus 2 equals 10. So 14 minus 10 equals 4 fewer hero movies. Okay, number 2, how many fewer students choose Tales than family movies? So we're comparing family and Tales. Family is greater, so I'm going to start with that one. I know that 20 votes for family minus 1, 2, 3 jumps. 3 times 4 is 12, or I could just look at the graph and see that it lands on this line, follow all the way down, and it's at 12. So 20 minus 12 equals 8 fewer Tales. Awesome. Okay, last page. The On Your Own. It says, use the bar graph for numbers 3 through 7. Ye survey students about which kind of game is their favorite. How many students does Ye survey? So if we look at this scale, or look at this graph, the scale is counting by 10, right? 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. We're counting by tens. So if we are halfway on the number graph, or the bar graph, halfway between 10 and 20 is 15. So we have 15 votes for ball game. We have 25 votes for board games, 5 votes for card games, 20 votes for computer games, and 10 votes for a playground game. So these are all the numbers of students. So we would add those all up and we would get, let's see, 15, I'm going to do 15 plus 5, and that's 20. 20 plus 20 is 40. 40 plus 10 is 50. 50 plus 25 is 75. So Ye surveys 75 students, so that's what you'll write down. And then, which kind of game do the greatest number of students choose? So just by looking at this graph, this one has the highest bar, so this has the most number of votes. And this is the board game. See how the topic is down below? So most students choose board games. I love board games. Number 5 says, how many more students choose computer games than ball games? So now we're comparing computer games and ball games. Computer games, you can see, has more votes. So 20 minus, what was that ball game? 15 equals 5 more students choose computer games. Number 6 says, how many fewer students choose card games than computer games? So card games and computer games, again, computer game is greater. So we do 20 minus the 5 votes for card games. 20 minus 5 equals 15. I love card games. There was only 5 votes. 15 fewer students. All right, number 7. If the scale showed counting by 2s, how would the bars change? So again, we shrink our scales so that we can have more information. If we went all the way up to 30 and we only counted by 2s, that would be a ton of bars. That would be 30 divided by 2 is 15, so we would have 15 bars all the way up. So instead we count by 10, so then we only need 3 bars because 30 divided by 10 is 3. So it's just 10, 20, 30. So if we were only counting by 2s, our scale, or our bars would be giant. They would go on and on and on forever. And so that's why we shrink it down, use different size scales so that we could represent a great amount in a small picture. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I hope that went well. You are going to do your homework on page 177 in your practice and homework journals. And then you need to come right back and do lesson 7. So that's going to be in a different video. So please watch that and do both of these lessons in a day. I know that's a lot. You can do it. You guys are the best. I hope everything is going well. Let me know if you need anything, and I'll see you at the next video.